Alright guys, welcome back to Anime Casuals. This is part 2 of our Castletown Dandelion review. That's a casual intro if I've ever had one. But anyway, I'm Lucky.
Johnny.
Michael.
And we make up Anime Casual. So Michael just explained the plot in the last one, and what do you want to add?
Now that's on part 2, I'm going to explain one of the biggest things in Castletown Dandelion. The dandelion part. If you pay attention while watching the anime, you will see a dandelion only at the beginning and a dandelion only at the very last episode. Yeah. I'm sure we'll get into it, but the dandelion really represents some interesting things. So if you're going to watch the anime, make sure you look out for those.
There you go. All right, Johnny, let's go on to the next segment.
Okay, so my part, I was going to kind of focus on just kind of showcasing some of the, what I thought were cooler parts of seeing the characters use their powers and kind of potential thoughts on that maybe. And then a little note on fan service, just a little bit, but yeah, we'll get to that. So first off, start with the youngest, Shiori. You covered a good amount of stuff, which is great, especially that watermelon thing. That cracks me up. Is the greatest scene.
Every time I figure it.
I love it, because, even the probability, I don't know, he was like, no, what's his name? Haruka, the probability guy. He was like, my power's telling me it's going to be Shiori. I don't know how, but it's going to be Shiori.
Yeah.
And totally was, because that watermelon was like, you are so nice to me, little girl. Please, split me open. And she fucking does. It works perfectly. And the watermelon's happy, and everything was great. And
don't eat me. I don't want to eat you. And he's like, it's okay.
And then even later on when she helps her older brother Shu fly a blimp by being like, hey, how do we fly you? And it all works out there.
Yeah.
Moving on to Teru, her older brother. Some of these cool moments that I liked were there's one part where, what do you call it? There was like a mudslide, rock slide, kind of isolating a village or a town. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's this massive pile of mud and rocks and stuff. He's like, hey, let me at it. And, with his super strength, he gets in there. And I don't know how long it was in anime time, it seemed like 5 minutes, real time, but like 3 hours, 3 days, I don't know, not really, but
a couple hours, I think.
Yeah,
he showed up with them afterwards.
But he got that done real quick, and I thought that was cool. And even his little thing at the end where he goes plus ultra just a little bit, and he grabs that blend and he's just, no, puts it down.
Super strength is right.
Hikari, her age control is it's pretty interesting. I liked how she made that tree just enormous. That was kind of a good showcase. I mean, because the rest of the anime is really her saying like, hey, now I'm older, or I'm younger. Now my sister's younger. Ha ha ha. But making that tree so massive that she could, if she could have jumped off, but scale a skyscraper is that's kind of impressive. And that was the God hand.
Yeah.
The life manipulation.
That was also super funny because then she was stuck in the tree.
She was, and that lasted for 24 hours too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she was up there for a while, unless, I don't know, one of her siblings helped her out. Maybe. Shoot, good brother.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna go out of order because I missed ages and stuff. But my list, Akane. The main character, she's already cool having gravity control and being able to kind of manipulate her gravity as well as anybody else who she touches, or anything she touches actually.
Yeah.
And she gets to use that a lot in crime fighting by chasing people, and just that scene in the 11th episode where she's in the house. It's kind of crazy how she's very adept at moving like an astronaut. She can kind of trajectorize herself. That's not a word. I don't know. But she could shoot herself down the hallway and perfectly kind of manipulate that whole thing. And the robbers are like, I didn't sign up for this. This is insane. This little girl. And she ends up wrecking everything. And that's a real cool way to think of that power versus something, super overpowered. Still cool. But going to Canaan, my favorite thing that she did, it's really cool how she did the drone thing. But my favorite thing is when she creates that alien object that just withstands
the wall.
anything. what is it, vibranium? That's the same thing. It like cancels out everything.
And, it cancels out shock. It's a shock absorber, and it can take shock from a truck, and apparently not destroy the truck. So
that's insane.
And it didn't move at all.
Yeah.
You gotta wonder how much that cost.
What did she say? Like 40. It was like a
40
lot of
million.
yen. Yeah, 40 million yen. It was crazy.
I couldn't find the scene again, but I heard her talk about she owes me 40 million.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, from what? But that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, whatever costs 40 million, she's got it.
Alien tech.
Alien tech.
Misaki. She's got. I'm gonna say rice. I said one for all on my thing here, but it's all for one.
All for one.
The one where she's got the 7 copies. She uses that pretty well, being able to help a lot of different people in her school and in community, and that's a cool power in its own. Not necessarily like, whoa, Superman, but it's still cool. Haruka with his probability, he doesn't do a whole lot in the anime. He's very much kind of a background character, I feel like. Yeah. With his power even, but that's entertaining in its own right because he's kind of like playing his own little game with his book and probabilities and stuff, so that's fun.
I'd actually forgotten about the watermelon scene that he did something, and I was like, that was actually one of my favorite moments he did, was he did it before, he didn't tell anybody, and it created a very funny moment.
That's a great scene.
Canaan wanted to prove him wrong, so she was just went at it and like, oh, that's a hard watermelon.
Serious.
I will not break for you.
And then there's Shu with his ability to teleport. I'm always impressed every time he had to, or I don't want to say had to, but every time he chose to save his siblings, chose like it's like, nah, I'm gonna let her die, whatever.
You die.
Every time he'd do that, because he'd have to get over there so quickly, and then he'd go to somewhere completely different, and that's a cool power. And even though he doesn't necessarily use it the best ways all the time, example, the last episode, there's an incident with a blimp, I mentioned earlier, and they're like, hey, why didn't you just teleport the blimp away? And he's like, oh, right. Next time. You get him next time. But, and then Aoi, power's too much. It's too much. It's too insane, being able to make anybody do whatever, and, I feel for her.
Yeah.
The
coming up soon.
That's a
she's a hard code Geassing it, bro.
That's what I was gonna say. Her power's very similar.
Like unlimited code Geass.
And then the last I'm gonna touch on is the King, who's every time I think about his power, it actually kind of blows me away a little bit further, weirdly, because being able to see emotion, I thought that's actually a pretty interesting power, and then further being able to see, I realized you can kind of see true intentions through that, like with the manager for Hikari, probably saying that wrong, I don't know, it sounds weird to me, but he could see just through everybody's stuff, and that's why he's so chill, versus I just kind of thought he's just a very laid back guy, but it's kind of hard or easy when you can kind of see what's coming with people, so
well, he also can see like the true love from his town, and he's just like, everybody really likes me, that's really cool, and he's having a good day.
And the last thing I'm going to touch on is fan service. I'm not going to say too much, but mostly because it's not really a fan servicey show. You know? That's something I look for. I like it. But the thing I like about it with the fan service in Castletown Dandelion is there is fan service, little splashes here and there, but the build-up around it is way better than the actual fan service, which is like there's the scene, it's an entire half episode about her forgetting to wear her skirt, Akane, forgetting to wear her skirt. Well, actually, she didn't forget to wear it, actually. She ripped it on her way there, and everybody's trying to, like, tiptoe around her and, like, not, bother her, be like, she totally forgot those, right?
Don't tell her, don't tell her.
Don't say anything. Don't look. And that whole scene, and then eventually she's like, oh, wait, I am wrong, and everyone has a great laugh. It's a great time.
Yeah, she thinks that she put shorts on underneath, even though she totally didn't. She's like, you guys are idiots. I got shorts on underneath. It's just like,
I don't know how you think you put on shorts. There's so much into that. How do you
That's
So there's not a lot of fan service, and that's fine. It's a fun anime in its own right because of that, because it works with everything around it. So That's
super
how
fun.
I feel about it.
All right, so we got the feels up next and metaphors, that kind of thing. One of the first scenes I ended up just looking up. I just looked up random episode. I was like, oh, something come to me, and it was a scene where Haruka is talking to Misaki, and Misaki's just like, she's thinking about all her older brothers and all her older brothers and sisters running for everything. She's like, they have such selfish reasons and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden she's like, I want Haruka to look at me that way, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's pretty selfish too. And then like all of her clothes like call her out on it too. But something that he actually said, I wrote a quote down. Now this is a translation from Crunchyroll since I watched it in sub, but he starts to notice. He's like, my dad, our dad kind of put us through this, but ever since then, quote, we thought of things we'd never thought of and began trying things we couldn't do. So that kind of gets them out of the comfort zone. So that's why, in a big way, this anime is a lot about growing up.
Yeah.
Especially being around these kids. You start to realize that they kind of have to be thrust out of their comfort zones for a good amount. Like almost everybody, pretty much everybody has to be thrust out of the comfort zone to a certain aspect. And then it continues on. Before we went out into the world, we could look at ourselves from a different. Or before we could go out in the world. We could look at ourselves from a different perspective. So it's kind of getting you ready for the real world and kind of realizing maybe there's a different way to look at things and also look at yourself in a lot of ways. And a lot of these people go through a big change, and that's really I think that's really where the heart of this anime is really in growing up and being able to overcome obstacles. And one of the biggest obstacles, I think, is actually for Aoi, which is we said the oldest. She's the oldest. Yeah, so she's the oldest, and she has this insane power to control people. But she's the least manipulative person that you'll ever meet. Yeah. And so she has this crazy temptation. And one of the things that one of the best moments in that anime, for me, in terms of metaphors and just feels in general, was Akane is walking home, and she's freaked out walking home by herself, so she's like, yeah, so all of her friends are walking, all of Aoi's friends are walking with her and Akane, and then they leave, and then Aoi's starting to like doubt herself. She's like, man, maybe these people are just my friends because of my power. Well, Akane doesn't know about her power yet, so she's like, oh, do you think they're just your friends because you're royalty? And then right after that, she says, even if that reason, her being royalty or Aoi's power, was what started your friendship, they're definitely your friends now, your true friends now. And I was like, that's kind of interesting, because if you think about it, like the way that people meet isn't always like the most glamorous. There's not like always these friendship moments. Like, it's not like somebody's getting beat up by a bully and like, get away from him, you're my best friend. It's not always like that. Yeah, sometimes it's like somebody has a cool Yu-Gi-Oh card or something like that, and you're like, oh, dude, that's pretty sick. And then, we're friends now. Or one of my friends, they had the same last name, and then that's literally how they say they got together. They had the same last name. They sat next to each other in class. People become friends for the weirdest reason. It's if you stay friends, that's where you find your true friends. So it doesn't really the reason why it starts isn't always the biggest part of that friendship, and that's what I really liked about Akane's quote right there. And another difficulty for another one of the sisters is Kanade. She's trying to become king because she wants to further medical technology in order to help her brother's legs, which, as Michael pointed out a lot earlier, that there was an incident with a castle that she made where he tried to save Akane because she was right under it. And he ended up losing not ability in his legs, but ability to do strenuous activity. And when he was young, he wanted to be a soccer player. And
he can't run.
Yeah, he can't do strenuous activities or anything like that.
Actually, you see it in the first episode when he tries to.
He tries to save Teru or something, and then all of a sudden his foot gives out on him or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, she kind of is going through this whole thing, and Shu eventually talks to her. He's like, "Don't become king for my sake. Become king for your own sake." And she kind of eventually grows up into that because this whole time she's trying to beat Aoi, and she's like, man, I gotta become some kind of saint to beat her, because she, she goes to visit a little preschool or something like that, and all these little kids drawing a picture of Aoi. He's like, I'm gonna vote for Aoi, and she's just like in the background like, I gotta gonna be some kind of freaking snake to get past my sister. But yeah, and the other part where I really like in Kanade, I'm not gonna go through each one of these people, but just the biggest parts of it. Is Kanade is taking care of Akane during I think Akane has like a fever or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And one of the biggest moments is right before all this. Her father tells her, "Hey, just remember, don't create anything that has not been created yet." And he's warning her about that.
$40 million.
Yeah, and
whatever.
Exactly. And when Akane's fever gets even worse, she starts to freak the hell out. And she's just like, I gotta make a cure-all drug for this. And Akane's just like, no, don't do it or else I'm running away. She's like, okay, I get it. But then Shiori, her cute little self, comes in and gives Akane a kiss on the cheek, and Akane just melts with with glee and everything, and just like falls back asleep. She's like, it's a good luck charm.
Yeah.
And that mom and dad used to give to us. And actually, that was a common thing for people that had fevers. The mom or dad would kiss the forehead, and they take some of the fever off of it. So in some aspects, they'd be getting some of that virus themselves.
Mm.
So the way that I kind of looked at this was sometimes we have to have faith instead of wishing for things that aren't here. So that's kind of a big thing with Kanade. She can make things, but she also has a limit to them in terms of wealth and everything like that. So that's kind of one of the biggest lessons that I think she learned, besides the fact that she shouldn't be king for anybody else's sake other than her own. And then the last point that I really wanted to point out was the dandelion. So,
hey.
So one of the things that I was just kind of like looking up. I was just thinking about whenever I was a kid, and you get because whenever you blow on a dandelion, it's a dried up version of the original dandelion. And one of the things that I started to realize is
dandelion. I never knew that.
Yeah, so that's why it looks yellow in the anime. So whenever you do it, you see the dandelions are still there unless air or some outside force pushes them to go into different directions and everything. But if you notice with Akane, once she's kind of given a gentle push, she's able to kind of spread a lot of good things around when she becomes Scarlet Bloom, which is I also think it's kind of a metaphor in terms of the name, or she's blooming in a certain way. She's able to kind of spread around and kind of help as many people as she can, and that's what dandelions do. They spread around to, well, of course they're considered a weed to some, but it's also it is also a used for herbal remedies. It's used to treat inflammation and that kind of thing. So even though sometimes she's spreading around and sometimes it may seem bad, she also does a lot of good.
Yeah.
And in the long run, so that's kind of the thing. The air is kind of like her family lifting her up a little bit to kind of help her go along. And also, she does have a gravitational power, which it kind of is like what a dandelion does. It uses the wind to kind of go with it. She controls gravity. Mm-hmm. And actually, an interesting thing I was just reading on on Google or something like that is dandelions actually have an air bubble above each seed. And it's not an exact bubble, but it's this thing that actually just keeps it afloat. And if they put a wind tunnel on it, it'll just stay at the same height.
That's pretty cool.
And so that's kind of what I liked about it. I liked about just reading up on it a little bit is that it really needs that kind of gentle push to kind of go wherever it needs to. But once the air takes it, it can go wherever it wants. And that's kind of where I like like what Akane does with or with the metaphor with Akane and her power, and trying to be a Castletown Dandelion. So so I know that Johnny had something else to add after this. So
just a little bonus question I was thinking about asking you guys. Who would you campaign for?
That was exactly what I was gonna ask. That's pretty good.
You guys on point today.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I'll be honest with you. I think the person I still hold this true is Misaki, the girl that does the All for One or does the different clones. I think she has a good understanding with her power of how she is, but she also has, through that power, she can also use the best of one of her abilities to kind of go towards something. And also, it seems like she's one of the better ones in interviews. They use her generally to do interviews and stuff, and so yeah, I think I really was actually campaigning for her. I didn't think she was gonna win in the end or anything like that, but I really liked the fact that she, she's always helping the clubs and everything. And technically, she's the manager of her own personalities. Like, that's a lot to deal with. So,
7 other people you got to deal with.
Yeah, right. So, that's kind of what I was going for. So, what about you, Johnny?
I've been trying to think about it even like through these episodes of Anime Casuals, and I really want to choose Shiori just because I think her ability would be really useful in that.
True.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, she could talk to so many things and just find out the root of everything,
and she's so nice.
I mean, further, nothing would be able to hide. Like, oh yeah, that fire hydrant over there says he saw you. Just oh my god, I forgot about the fire hydrant.
Think about that.
I mean, and that'd be great. I'd love to see that.
This watermelon's my best friend now.
People putting blindfolds on, like, I'll just talk to the cover then. No!
Oh my god. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Shiori. It'll be a while, but she'll get there, and she's gonna.
She's destined for greatness.
She's a wreck shop. She could do it. Shiori 2030, I don't know. 2030, whatever it would be.
She's just so nice. She's just great, and she's constantly supporting people. She's like, just wants the best.
Well, what about you, Michael?
I have said since the very first episode, because this person is just generally such a good person.
Yeah. And
is the true savior of this anime. I not because the anime is bad, but because he's a savior of his family.
Yeah.
And Shu is my dude who I've been wanting to go every episode. I was really worried because, watching this anime, I was like, oh, it might be one of those animes where it's like the main character who's got to win, Yeah. And that's another point in this anime is like, it's not that way. Mm-hmm. Shu, I think, the reason why I was with him from like the first episode is because he's always helping everybody but himself. And he honestly doesn't need too much help. He's kind of popular. He obviously from being a royal family, he's a very nice person. But he's always supporting the rest of his family because he sees all the things that they want to achieve but can't push themselves. But they can't take the step themselves. So, like, he helps Akane go campaign. Yeah. She wanted to do it. But she, like you said, she did not push. He's like, let's go do it.
He's number 2 in the fan club, too.
Yeah, he's also... that was the biggest thing of why I started going for Shu, because there's a fan club in the high school they all attend, and I gotta say, the president of this fan club is a good guy. A little creepy because of the fan club aspect, but like that kind of boy, Japanese creepy. But like, he just wants the best for Akane. And the second person who joined was her brother. And I was like, but he joined because he wants to help her. He's always influenced decisions to make sure she's happy and laughing. And the speech at the end of the whole anime, where he's like, think about your siblings, think about your loved ones, and that's what we feel about you, our citizens. I was like, and
control that situation.
I think he deserves it. Because he's just generally a great guy. I was thinking Shiori for a while, because she's just so adorable. I think she would make just a great ruler. I didn't even think of her talking to everything. That was hilarious. But yeah, I was going for Shu.
Yeah, and just one more point that I want to point out there in terms of metaphors. I kind of forgot until we just talked about it right now. Is everybody became their own king in a kind of a way. Is they conquered their own thing. By the end of it, or they found out who they wanted to be, which I think this anime is really just a coming of age story and trying to figure out what you want in life. So I thought that was really cool, and that's why we recommend Castletown Dandelions. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, and we'll figure out what our next anime casuals will be on in terms of anime, but it looks like these fools are leaning towards Gurren Lagann, so I might have to binge watch that.
It's a fun binge.
But who the hell do you think I am?
Who decided this? Okay. All right, guys, keep it casual.